The story starts with Makoto, a middle-aged salary earner, returning home late after working overtime, when he gets mugged by a psycho and is left bleeding for dead. While in pain, Makoto wonders why he had to suffer such a cruel fate despite facing a very rough life since he was born. He recalls how he had worked his sorry cheeks off to repay his father's debt, and then spent years just trying to get himself back on his feet, never once getting a shot with the ladies. Now, as Makoto's vision fades, and suddenly, a horrible, bitter taste spreads through his mouth, and when he opens his eyes, he's blessed with a golden view. He's surprised to see a girl named Yuka, who's wearing a witch's hat and wonders if it's Halloween, but the girl snaps him back to reality by telling him he's in a dungeon, and she just treated him with her healing potion. Seeing him geek out and talk about games, Yuka concludes he must have been summoned and tells him to calm down. Makoto gets pissed at her attitude and yells at her to show some respect, insisting he's 38, but Yuka only looks confused and says they're obviously around the same age. Annoyed, Makoto whips out his driver's license to prove he's telling the truth, but when Yuka looks at the photo on the card, she concludes it belongs to his father. He tries to argue, but then notices his clothes hanging loose and his shoes not fitting him, so he asks her for a mirror, and to his surprise, he looks like he has regressed by 20 years. Not knowing what to do, he asks Yuka for advice, so she tells him they have to get out of the dungeon. Makoto tries to calm his nerves with a cigarette, but starts coughing as it feels like getting younger came with the brand new lungs. Yuka snaps at him for smoking right after she saved his life, and Makoto, realizing she has every right to roast him, lets it slide. After about an hour of walking, Makoto finally whines and asks what her plan is and why she's even in the dungeon. Yuka explains how she and her entire class were teleported to the Vali's kingdom, and there, the king told them they'd been summoned for a great cause he did not know about. Thankfully, they asked around and learned that if they defeated the immortal king, they might be able to go back to their world. The class got fired up, so they all joined the night with the hopes of defeating the skeleton lord, who is the immortal king's lieutenant, but unfortunately for her, she got separated from her party. Not only that, she lost the basic things needed for survival and ended up using her only potion on him. Makoto feels bad for her, but then learns that she had saved him to act as a tank while she finishes her spells. Makoto laughs at her for overestimating him because he knows how pathetic he is when it comes to physical exercise. Yuka then checks his stats, and not only lists his abilities, but also asks him if he has trained in martial arts before. Makoto informs her how he got mollywopped back in the days, but then asks her how she knows his stats. Yuka nearly fesses up about her appraisal skill, which is the ability to peek at someone else's skill, but quickly takes it back, making Makoto suspicious. Unknown to them, a zombie had crept up close, and by the time he finally notices it, Makoto's scream goes so high that it'll give opera singers a run for their money. Yuka immediately chants and fires a powerful magical spear at it, just as it strikes the undead in the gut, and as she is about to perform a follow-up, Makoto's leg gives out due to his uncomfortable shoes. The zombie immediately charges at him and attacks him. While Makoto fends for himself, he yells at Yuka to use her magic once more, but the scared girl freezes in shock after watching him get bitten. At this point, Makoto realizes he's relying on a weak young lady for help. Frustrated at life for being unfair to him once again, Makoto snaps into a rage and unleashes magical flames on the zombie, burning it to a crisp. Yuka watches in shock, while Makoto stares at his own hand in disbelief. As soon as he realizes that he's wielding spirit magic, he tries to turn it off and it works. He then runs to Yuka to check up on her, but she apologizes for not helping him, and then she informs him that his injuries will heal soon. Concerned due to her sloppiness in battle, Makoto asks if it was her first battle, but Yuka denies it. Then she explains that he was supposed to have properly held it for her to finish it off. Makoto tries to explain his way out, but he suddenly hears a voice in his head saying he has leveled up. Yuka realizes what happened, so she tells him the voice belongs to the system, just like in games. Makoto watches as his injuries heal up, and the system awards him a bonus point, so Yuka says he can go to a church to spend points and acquire skills. Makoto loots the zombie and discovers a pair of boots that fit him perfectly. Later, Yuka argues with him for acting like he's some protagonist during the fight with the zombie. and he calms her down by reminding her that they need to work together to escape the place. Curious, he asks her how to tell which dungeon they are in, and Yuka informs him that the structure of the dungeon changes per floor, and they are currently on the 10th floor. Despite realizing how deep they are in the rabbit hole, Makoto doesn't freak out but replies in a lackluster way. Yuka gets irked by his behavior and wonders if this is what a generational culture shock looks like in human form. Meanwhile, on the other side of the dungeon, a guy is running for his life while a pack of zombies chases him down. And as he feels them closing in, he realizes he has no choice but to fight right there. When the zombies charge, he curses his luck and unleashes everything he has, wondering how things even came to this. This guy is Kimura, and when their entire class was summoned to this world, he had been genuinely excited, feeling like he had finally become the protagonist of a fictional story after never getting a moment to shine before. He remembers thinking that zombies were supposed to be the weakest mobs, yet he's already struggling and wonders where everyone else has gone. The job he received wasn't anything special either, but he didn't let it bother him because Kuki, the one at the top of their class hierarchy, relied on him and told everyone they would defeat the undead king together and return home, something Kimura was proud of at the time. Now, while zombies claw at him, he realizes this world is far crueler than any game or novel, and one zombie sinks its teeth into his neck. As the pain spreads, he asked himself why he never questioned whether he should fight as a knight in the first place, why he had been able to fight without feeling anything, and why he ever believed in Kuki, someone he had barely spoken to. The zombies pile onto him, tearing into his body while the only thing left in his mind is a final, hollow why. Somewhere else in the dungeon, Yuka is chanting her spells while zombies rush at her, manifesting magic bullets whenever she finds an opening, and Makoto, trying to help, ignites his punch with unstable fire that bursts from his fist. He curses the instability when the zombies close in again, leaving him no choice but to strike while Yuka fires another magic bullet. He swings hard, and flames burst from his mouth, surprising Yuka, who grins as she realizes her spell finally worked, and the zombies begin burning away into smoke. Makoto finishes one off with a final kick, and after a moment, the system announces his level up and stat boost. He collects loot with a smug grin while Yuka watches with an expression that screams this feels less like adventuring and more like daylight robbery. Makoto checks the drops and instantly deflates, sighing at the miserable pile, thinking better weapons would make their lives easier, and once the exhaustion settles in, he suggests taking a break for the day. They head back to an open area they found earlier. Yuka places barrier needles at 4 corners to activate a protective barrier and tells Makoto they can finally spread out a blanket. He lets out a relieved breath, and after wandering for 3 days straight, Yuka starts feeling like they might never escape. Makoto mutters that if they at least had a paper pencil, it would have helped, and she regretfully admits she doesn't have a map either. He drinks water from a flask, a magic item that produces unlimited water and is apparently common in this world, while Yuka complains she feels disgusting and wants a bath. Makoto, using exactly 1 brain cell, suggests she just wipe herself down with water from the flask. She immediately short-circuits at the idea of doing that in front of him. He shrugs and says he won't peek, which is a bold lie considering he can already see her figure from the way she's sitting, and her foot answers before her mouth does. She kicks him and calls him a creep. She blurts out that she already has someone she likes, and he's taken aback because it comes out of nowhere. With red cheeks, she says the guy is kooky, rich, handsome, smart, athletic, and overall amazing, someone on a completely different level compared to Makoto. He silently stares, amused at how she casually lists being rich as a trait, and she snaps back like a textbook gold digger that money is important. Then she explains that after being summoned, Kuki was the one who organized their classmates, which made her admire him, and Makoto stares at her dumb misunderstanding as she talks like he's trying to steal her crush. Instead of correcting her, he lies down, saying he won't bother explaining because he's not stupid enough to make an enemy in a place like this. She accepts that, and he tells her to eat something and go to sleep. She tastes the food, complains it's dry and flavorless, and says she wants a warm meal. While she eats, Makoto stares at his hand when she asks about the Ignite thing and wonders out loud what that even was. She complains he's been acting like a Chunobiu for the last 3 days. but he says it's just a keyword he uses to hype himself up, and even with the barrier, he's worried the noise might attract monsters. Looking at his palm again, he tries to figure out if this is what being a spirit sorcerer feels like, because it's honestly underwhelming. Yuka waits for him to explain, but Makoto was actually hoping she had some hints on how to use the skill better. Yuka says she was too busy dealing with her own issues, so she can't help, though she thinks he's using it fine, but Makoto insists the fire is unstable, and he can't attack from long range. Yuka reminds him that since he's a martial artist as a sub-job, he can just punch things, but he rejects the idea immediately because it's obviously scary. She finds him pathetic for a guy, but Makoto points out that even if it feels game-like, there's no save or continue here, and he wants to keep a safety margin. In that sense, he says Yuka is amazing, but she instantly rejects the compliment. He tells her he's being honest, pointing out that this is a real fight to the death, and although the beginning was rough, she didn't freeze up as normal people would. Yuka blushes and mumbles about the idea of a fight to the death, and Makoto tells her she needs to understand the difference between games and reality, because he can't trust his life to someone who isn't grounded. Yuka tries explaining that she never found the situation strange, since she didn't understand what was happening, and didn't even realize they were literally fighting for their lives. Makoto gives up trying to reason with her, deciding there's no point, and focuses back on escaping the dungeon, which means they need to rest properly. The next day, when they're about to set off again, Makoto asks Yuka if she's really okay because he's worried she might freeze again once she remembers it's a genuine life-or-death fight. She insists she's fine, while Makoto states that their main rule is simple: stay alive, and going all out isn't an option. When she asks him if she's weird, he immediately answers with brutal honesty, saying her attitude sucks, which makes her snap back in frustration and call herself an idiot for even asking him. Before she can continue the drama, Makoto tells her to quiet down because he smells blood and warns her to move carefully. Yuka realizes the smell isn't just blood, and in the distance, she and Makoto spot zombies literally partying over a dead guy, chewing and enjoying his meat. And just as Makoto warns her to get ready for a preemptive strike, Yuka freezes in shock when she recognizes her classmate Kimura lying there. But on Makoto's signal, she forces herself to calm down and starts chanting her spell, manifesting a cluster of magic bullets that blast toward the zombie squad, though the shot unfortunately misses and both of them panic as the zombies snap their heads toward them. While shaking, Yuka starts chanting again as the zombies now charge at them, and at that moment, Makoto steps forward and activates Ignite, a sharp flame bursting from his palm as he swings and punches the first zombie. Then prepares to finish the second one before it moves, but he freezes when he realizes these things don't go down easily, and he panics as one screeches and grabs him, making Makoto shout back in frustration about why undead creatures hate them so much. Makoto braces himself and strikes again, fire burning through its body, when suddenly Yuka's magic bullet flies straight past him, forcing him to duck just in time as the shot pierces the zombie cleanly. And Makoto complains that she should at least give a heads up, while Yuka snaps back that she made sure she wouldn't hit him, leaving Makoto only able to laugh at this foul-mouthed girl who's surprisingly not that bad. They both look toward the last zombie still enjoying its feast, but then they see its body shifting as its form mutates, its clothes tearing apart over its big plots, and the creature growls as the system declares it has evolved into a ghoul, something neither of them has any idea about. Trying to protect them both, Yuka snaps into full focus and chants again, and Makoto realizes just how serious and talented she is as her magic bullet hits the creature directly, making her grin smugly as she says they pulled it off. But Makoto keeps staring at the smoke until, out of nowhere, the mutated zombie rises from it, growling. Yuka tells Makoto to cover her, and he rushes forward, leaps high, ignites his fist, and throws a flame punch. But the big plot ghoul moves with insane speed and slams into him midair, sending him crashing to the ground. Seeing things spiral out of control, Yuka fires more magic bullets that pierce through the ghoul, but the creature keeps fighting back, smashing Makoto again so hard he spits blood, and he curses as he realizes this thing is on a completely different level from regular zombies and even seems to understand combat technique. Before he can react, The ghoul bites into his arm, making him scream in pain, and Yuka, seeing no other option left, thinks of using her Raging Flame spell, manifesting a flame bullet that blasts into the ghoul's back while it keeps chewing into Makoto, and she continues firing until the creature finally screams and dissipates, leaving Makoto collapsed on the ground with his arm severely torn, while Yuka panics at the sight of his injury. Makoto holds his injured arm in disbelief, realizing the zombie hasn't vanished and has flickered back again. And the first thing that hits Yuka is pure panic as she blurts out that they should just run. But Makoto immediately asks where they're supposed to run to, saying that if she really wants to, she can try, but both of them will end up dead that way, making Yuka refuse and demand what they're supposed to do now. Makoto says they have no choice but to go all out, which startles Yuka. She snaps that she cannot believe this wasn't already them going all out, and asks if he's about to awaken some last-second hidden power like a bargain bin shonen hero. Makoto laughs awkwardly and says he's not a manga protagonist. Yuka fires back that he's just a worn-out 40-year-old man running on caffeine and regret. He grins anyway and says the fire's still a mess, but if he doesn't force it now, they're finished. Then he gestures at the zombie and tells Yuka to shoot it again, because if they're going down, they might as well do it loudly. Yuka panics because the earlier shot only landed due to surprise, but Makoto tells her to just get it close enough, and she starts chanting again, calling on flames to burn her enemy into ashes, while he charges forward with everything he has, and he sees the big plot zombie jolt in fear as the flame bullet slams into her, making her scream in agony. Makoto keeps pushing, thinking that since her back was burned earlier, she's clearly afraid of Yuka's flames. And as her face starts burning too, he suddenly realizes what he's been missing this whole time, while Yuka notices the wavering flame gathering tighter. And then a jet-black fire wraps itself around Makoto's fist, as he understands that the missing piece is simply accepting that this is reality, and that he needs the resolve to face his fear head-on instead of hesitating. With that clarity, he throws a powerful punch that crashes into the zombie with brutal force, a huge blast echoing as the creature finally burns away into ashes, and Yuka stares in shock, realizing they actually pulled it off while the smoke fades around them and they both slump down, exhausted, just as the system announces their level up and Makoto's stats increase. Makoto drops to the ground, and Yuka still can't believe the victory until he thanks her, surprising her before she asks if he's okay. And he glances at his arm, noticing that even though the wounds have healed from leveling up, his entire body feels sluggish and drained. Yuka watches him closely and, realizing there's no other way, raises her palm toward him as a soft light forms, and when he asks if she can use healing magic, she quietly admits it. Makoto rotates his arm and thanks her, saying he feels a bit better now, then asks if she used some kind of skill earlier when she hesitated with the first zombie. Yuka answers that it was just something she knew, nothing more. But Makoto notices the way she looks toward Kimura's body as she says she never even talked to him, despite being classmates, and that everyone kept saying it would be safe, even Hoshino. Makoto asks who that is, and she explains that Hoshino is the class vice president and basically the leader among the girls, which makes Makoto chuckle as they start walking again, and he comments that being a student these days sounds ridiculously rough. Yuka quietly says that they're literally murdering each other out here and keeps staring at the dead body, finally admitting that she needs to make up her mind, too. Later, they reach a cave where a group of horrible skeleton creatures welcomes them, and Makoto immediately panics at the sight as he activates ignition and swings his fist while Yuka starts manifesting her magic bullets, blasting the skeletons apart as flames rise from their bones. Realizing Makoto has now surpassed level 10, the fights feel a bit easier, and the system notifies another boost in his stats, but he still pauses to check on Yuka, who admits in a faint voice that she's drained, and normally this would be a perfect time to rest. Yet they continue their exploration anyway, because even after rationing, they only have about 4 days of food left. While walking deeper inside, Makoto tells her they'll rest soon, something Yuka desperately wants since they can't afford to prioritize safety entirely and are forcing themselves to push a little further. But both of them flinch the moment they spot a lone person ahead surrounded by skeleton creatures, and Makoto asks if Yuka recognizes him, which she doesn't, though she quickly decides they have to help. They prepare an attack, and just as Yuka activates her fire bullet, Makoto unleashes his pitch-black bullet, and both blasts land together, smoke filling the cave until an explosion wipes the monsters out, leaving the man alive and shaking in front of them. Makoto asks if he's okay while the guy pants heavily and stares at them in awe, shocked that two kids could be that strong, and he hurriedly introduces himself, changing his name to Tom before thanking them for saving him. Makoto notices that Tom understands Japanese, and Yuka is surprised. Tom says this isn't the ideal place to chat, then steps back and tells them to come inside the barrier he has set up, explaining that the undead won't be able to detect them there. He admits he thought he was going to die out there, but Makoto reassures him, and Yuka bluntly asks if he knows how to escape the dungeon. Tom nods and explains he makes a living exploring dungeons to support his little brother, which makes Makoto comment that in normal dungeon expeditions, the combat team and support team split up, but there's supposed to be an exploration unit too, and Tom confirms it's usually the knights who handle that part. Tom goes on to explain that before the main forces enter, low-ranking rookies are often sent inside to scout ahead, and that people like him make maps and sell them. So if Makoto and Yuka weren't even told this much, they were clearly set up as rookie bait, something Yuka doesn't fully understand until Tom says that sending clueless adventurers inside is a common rookie-crushing tactic, even among knights. Makoto finds that a pretty awful way for knights to operate, and Tom shrugs, saying that if someone gets fooled, it's their own fault, though Makoto calls that stupid, making Tom reluctantly admit that the ones doing the deceiving are obviously the bad guys. Anyway, Makoto cuts to the point and says they want to get out of the dungeon and asks if Tom has a map, food, or even a knife they can trade for. So Tom pulls out items from his backpack, saying they don't seem like bad people and they saved his life, so he'll help them. Then he adds a dramatic condition that when they escape, they must burn the map, and he makes them promise. Makoto agrees instantly and takes the map without even checking its details, which surprises Tom, until Makoto casually winks and says he wouldn't trick someone who saved his life, making Tom laugh because he can't believe he met such nice people down here. Sometime later, they check the map together and confirm their current location while Tom points out a vertical shaft that leads upward, warning them to be careful because there's a massive hole there with no idea how far it drops. And since this Skeleton King dungeon is unbelievably vast, falling would be the end. He adds that them even running into each other like this is basically a miracle. Makoto says the whole situation is bad, but wonders if solo exploration is even possible when you can't rely on anyone for help. But Tom replies that if he keeps running, he somehow manages, which doesn't sound reassuring to Makoto at all, though Tom insists he does survive and then starts preparing to leave. Makoto thanks him for the supplies and shakes his hand, mentally noting that Tom's hands are weirdly soft for someone doing hardcore dungeon labor. That single thought nearly short-circuits Tom's brain. He yanks his hand back, stammers that he has to go, and speed walks away like his soul took damage, though he tells them to hire him if they ever need. Once Tom disappears, Makoto asks Yuka for her thoughts, and she says they can trust him since his job is listed as a thief, but his status frame is blue, which means he hasn't murdered anyone. Makoto looks surprised, and Yuka explains that ending someone outside of war turns your status red. Satisfied with that clarification, she steps forward and says they can finally move ahead now that they have both the map and extra food. As they keep walking for what feels like forever, Yuka wonders why they still haven't reached anything, and Makoto says they should be close because once they get past Harem, the map shows the vertical shaft ahead, so when they finally spot it, both of them let out a sigh of relief, and Yuka declares that the 9th floor is right in front of them. Makoto suggests resting a little before climbing, but Yuka thinks he's joking, saying that after coming this far they should only rest once they actually step onto the 9th floor, even though her legs are clearly shaking, and Makoto tells her not to push herself. But she stubbornly insists she's fine, only to sit down the moment he walks forward to check the path. Makoto peers into the deep hole below and hears the sound of water echoing from the bottom, and seeing that a rope is hanging there, he realizes they just need to climb it. While Yuka asks if he really thinks they can climb that, and Makoto answers with peak middle-aged honesty that they have no choice unless she wants to live here and start a zombie-themed airman. Then he tells her to be careful as they walk along the narrow ledge toward the rope, and she sees the height. She snaps at him to stop making that terrified face because it's scaring her. Once they reach the rope, Yuka immediately says she'll go after him. Then her brain catches up to her mouth, and she blurts out that she absolutely cannot trust him with her short skirt. She yells at him to stop standing there, calls him gross, and orders him to climb already, while Makoto sighs, accepts his fate as a falsely accused creep, and grabs the rope. Makoto starts pulling himself up the rope, grateful that the incline is slightly less steep here, and Yuka scrambles up after him, so when he feels they've finally reached the 9th floor, he starts to relax, but Yuka suddenly feels something swirling around her. She tries brushing it off, but her balance slips, and Makoto panics as she trembles and says her strength is fading, and the rope slips from her fingers. Makoto immediately loses his grip right after her and goes diving down to catch her, somehow grabbing her mid-fall and stopping himself by catching the rope again, and he stares at her in shock while she mumbles that she's completely drained. He holds her by the waist and asks if she can use magic, but she says she can't even lift her arms, and at that moment, Makoto feels the same strange pressure weakening his body too. Realizing they won't be able to climb like this, he asks her if she's okay with taking a gamble, and when she weakly asks what he means, he says there's a river below them and he'll support her as much as he can, but she has to promise she won't die. Yuka's drained eyes stay fixed on him as he lets go of the rope, and the two of them fall together. The strange presence continues chasing them even as Makoto keeps Yuka close, and they crash into the river so hard that both of them go underwater before floating back up. Makoto panics, calling Yuka's name as she lies unconscious, and he drags her out while his leg throbs in pain, the roar of a waterfall echoing behind them as he struggles to get them to safety. After some time, Yuka wakes up, and Makoto lets out a relieved breath, thanking the heavens she's alive, and she stares at his terrified face, realizing he thought she had died. She looks around and is surprised they survived, while Makoto explains that they ended up at an underground lake, and she notices blood running down his face. She worries immediately, saying he got hurt protecting her, but Makoto insists he just hit a rock and asks her to heal him, only for her to sadly admit she can't because her real skill is Soul Heal, which only heals the mind, and being able to see statuses is just a side effect. Makoto tries wiping the blood and braces himself for the worst as Yuka apologizes, but suddenly a huge shadow looms behind her, and an upper-class skeleton warrior swings its weapon, causing an explosion that sends both of them crashing to the ground. Makoto activates ignition in a panic, and Yuka shouts that he'll die if he fights it head-on, telling him to run. But Makoto says running is pointless because this thing will end him anyway, so he'll bet everything on leveling up. He rushes forward with flames bursting from his fist and tells Yuka to cover him, so she starts chanting and launches a magic bullet, only for both of them to freeze when the creature effortlessly deflects it. Makoto punches it in rage, but the skeleton is unbelievably strong, forcing him into a brutal close-quarters fight while Yuka fires more flame bullets to at least slow it down, watching flames flare across its skull, while Makoto curses that it's still too strong. Knowing she has to support him somehow, Yuka begins chanting again and manifests a binding spell that wraps around the skeleton like ropes, and to her shock, it actually stops its movements for a moment. Makoto sees the opening and charges in, but the creature breaks free just as he reaches it and slams him brutally into the ground. Yuka watches in horror as the creature keeps pounding Makoto mercilessly, and she tries desperately to think of something she can do, remembering her dead classmates and the moment Makoto looked ready to sacrifice himself. With determination burning through her exhaustion, she pushes herself forward and casts the binding spell again, this time pouring everything she has into it, and the ropes slam the skeleton back and pin it hard to the ground. Makoto, shocked that she managed that, hears her declare that she's definitely returning to the surface, and she forces the creature down with all her strength. Makoto takes the chance, ignites his fist again, gathers everything left in him, and smashes it into the creature. The explosion tears through the cavern like the dungeon itself is rage-quitting, and Makoto goes flying backward, crashing down like a hero who forgot the landing part. Yuka rushes to him, almost in tears, begging him to stay with her, and Makoto cracks his eyes open just enough to mumble that she was amazing, immediately earning a furious denial. She snaps that she only managed because he was there, then freaks out even harder when she sees him bleeding and tells him to stop talking like he's about to get a tragic ending. Just then, the system notification rings, showing her level has increased. Yuka gasps in surprise, realizing she leveled up, while Makoto, face swollen and barely holding on, acknowledges it and apologizes for everything. The next day, they finally reach what is probably the dungeon's boss palace. Makoto comments that it looks like they have found a way to conquer the entire place, but Yuka immediately scolds him for saying something so ridiculous. From the top of a boulder, Makoto looks over the area and says that with this many high-tier skeletons around, there is no way they can win in a straight fight, and Yuka nervously asks what they should do now. Makoto casually replies that the only option is to fight and take them down one by one. Yuka doubts they can even manage that, but Makoto explains that after watching the skeleton general earlier, he noticed something. As they peek from behind the rocks, he points out that these skeletons keep patrolling the same area, and Yuka agrees, since they really do move back and forth like bot mobs in a game. Makoto adds that since they all wear the same armor, they were probably created just to guard the boss, which means they aren't coordinated. When Yuka asks how he knows, he explains that when they fought the first skeleton general, no reinforcements came even after all the noise they made, so its attack was purely because they crossed its path. That means they should be able to lure them out one at a time. The other key point is the core. When they broke its armor earlier, the red core got exposed, and hitting it was an accident, but the moment it shattered, the monster exploded and vanished. So the plan is simple. Move slowly, lure each skeleton out alone. Yuka restrains them with magic, and Makoto breaks their armor with fireballs and crushes the core. He steps forward, saying they should at least try, while Yuka snaps that just because they beat one skeleton doesn't mean he should get cocky. Sometime later, the ground looks like a battlefield they somehow survived, with smoke and flames rising from the shattered skeletons. Makoto says they managed to pull it off, while Yuka points out they practically died doing it. A notification pops up, and Makoto levels up again. Yuka guesses that with his cheat-tier firepower, they might actually be able to clear this dungeon. Now that they have a working plan, Makoto says he'll keep grinding levels until he can win alone, and then it will be Yuka's turn, asking if she agrees. She hesitates, wondering if she can trust him, but Makoto laughs and assures her he won't betray her even if there is a huge level gap. She eventually agrees, then complains that she's sweaty, so Makoto suggests they head to the underground lake, eat, and take a bath before the next fight. A little later by the lake, Yuka undresses and uses her skill to check the surroundings just to be safe. Since there are no animals or monsters nearby, she finally steps into the water. Standing there with her plots out in full display, she enjoys the water while yelling at Makoto not to peek, reminding him that just because he has a cheat skill doesn't mean she can let her guard down. Makoto, who is sitting on the opposite side behind a boulder, ignores her complaints and mutters about how those skeletons had both physical and magic resistance. Then he realizes that Yuka can see enemy skills and asks why she kept that hidden. She admits it, and he complains that she still hides things even after healing him, telling her to trust him a bit more. She argues that she does trust him, but says it's just her personality and that boys always overdo everything, especially when he shouts ignite like some dramatic hero. Makoto proudly flexes that being older makes him more sensible, but Yuka quickly grows emotional and tells him not to die, because if he goes down, she is dead too. She then tells him to close his eyes because she's getting out, and Makoto does. The moment she rises from the water, her cheeks turn red as she realizes her lemon looks even bigger after the bath, which annoys her because now she needs to change her wet panties. She blames guys for staring at her in weird ways, and then accidentally thinks about her boyfriend, Kuki, which makes her even more embarrassed as she tries not to let her imagination run wild. She tells herself to stay focused and walk out of the water properly, thinking about how she fell from such a height and how Makoto risked himself to save her, and wonders if she should thank him. At that moment, she decides to swap places with Makoto, but he hears only silence and worriedly calls out to her. When he looks down, the view in front of him is Yuka slipping in the water with her hot view exposed, and Makoto freezes at the sight like he just found paradise. Yuka snaps at him and prepares a spell, causing Makoto to panic and run back, apologizing, mumbling that it suddenly feels much hotter in there. After that, the two of them keep grinding levels non-stop, and day by day their strength rises until a few days later, the ground around them looks like the aftermath of a massive battlefield filled with collapsed skeletons. Makoto finally declares that they can move forward, and at this point, he is level 75 while Yuka sits at level 72. Even though she knows it took forever, Makoto feels satisfied because the grind was worth it. Yuka agrees that the levels are nice, but points out that if there is nothing ahead, they are done for since they are almost out of food. As they continue walking, Makoto notices an old mural and wonders what it depicts, so Yuka explains that it shows a mythological scene about an ancient war between those who worshipped the gods and those who opposed them. The opposing side lost, but their corpses turned into undead who rose again to fight, basically the origin story of the undead. Makoto comments that in this world, the undead are literally the byproduct of war, and since they can't confirm the truth of the mural, all they can do is keep moving. Eventually, they reach a massive, ancient-looking door. Makoto pushes it open and tells Yuka they are going in, and inside the chamber is a distant throne where a giant skeleton sits. Yuka identifies it as the king, and Makoto tells her to cover him while she warns him not to let the boss break through his defense, or he will be dead. Makoto asks for its stats, but Yuka tells him it doesn't have any, which immediately confirms this is a boss fight. Makoto steps forward, planning to test things out with his cheat tier flames, and he throws a punch, but the Skeleton King blocks it with a glowing shield. He backs up, realizing it must be a skill, and curses because even with all his power, the attack gets deflected. Yuka prepares to bind it, but Makoto stops her as he notices the king doesn't move unless they step into its territory, unlike the generals that charged at them recklessly. Then, without warning, the king grins and fires shockwaves at him, and Makoto freezes for a moment as flashes of his previous life hit him hard. Yuka's scream snaps him back, and he apologizes quickly, realizing the attack was mental and he would have died without her. She also points out that his flames don't work on the king at all. Makoto decides to try physical attacks and charges in again, leaping high and unleashing a fully loaded punch, but the king deflects that as well, sending him flying. Yuka quickly activates her bind formation, but Makoto says the creature is too fast, and the shield acts as both offense and defense, making it ridiculously strong. Yuka struggles to hold the bind and asks if he is okay, because it looked like the same mental attack hit him again, and Makoto admits he's not doing great. If Yuka loses focus, the bind breaks and they are finished, so he decides he has to take the king down before it activates another shockwave. Yuka signals him as she tightens the bind, and Makoto rushes in until an explosion shakes the room. The blast only sends Makoto flying once more, and Yuka stares in panic while Makoto yells for her to watch out, regretting that he didn't catch the bluff earlier. He charges again, shouting that he will smash through the shield with brute force, and puts everything he has into a single punch, only to realize even that doesn't work. The king shifts the shield and launches him backward, while Yuka fires a magic bullet that doesn't even scratch the shield. She rushes to Makoto, demanding to know what kind of shield this is, while he mutters that it seems to be charging up even more. Yuka orders him to focus on the main body while she restrains the shield, and Makoto snaps back, asking how he's supposed to do that. As she activates another bind formation, Makoto decides that the king must have a core hidden somewhere, so he circles to attack from behind. Yuka keeps chanting, and since her level went up, she can cast more simultaneously, so she unleashes a fireball and signals Makoto to go all out. Makoto charges, but the blast is so intense that Yuka nearly gets blown away and screams that she almost died. She notices Makoto's hands are cut, and blood is splattering everywhere as the pain hits him hard. She begs him to retreat because they don't have another choice, but he refuses, saying if they fall back now, it's over. With raw determination, he declares he'll use even more fire despite her yelling that he'll end himself. Makoto ignites his fist again, pushing his power past its limit, and as he remembers every bitter moment of his old life, he screams for everything to burn to ashes. His rage spirals as he wonders why something always gets in his way, and Yuka can only stare at him as his palm swells with unstable fire. He keeps shouting for more power, even as it burns him, while a vicious roar from the Skeleton King shakes the chamber. Makoto stops for a second, shocked at what is happening, and then, with his fist fully charged, he rushes forward with burning eyes and slams the shield. The explosion is massive, and for a moment, Makoto feels his punch breaking through until he actually sees the Skeleton King's core. His eyes widen as he wonders if he finally destroyed it, but the victory lasts only a second, because right in front of them, the shield regenerates instantly, and the Skeleton King stands again with the same overwhelming force. Makoto curses, realizing there is no core after all and the shield can regenerate, and he has no idea what they're supposed to do next. Yuka trembles but says that they came this far, so if they take down this thing, they can move forward. They both wonder if the Skeleton King is literally immortal, and while Makoto admits he is completely out of ideas, Yuka suddenly says she thinks they can actually win. With a tired but confident smirk, she claims she has figured out the king's trick, and Makoto sees her in disbelief. Makoto asks her what she figured out, and Yuka points out that even in this situation, the Skeleton King never comes in to finish them off and always keeps its shield facing the same direction. That makes Makoto pause, and when Yuka tells him to look at the floor, he finally notices the scuff marks and realizes they trace the king's movement pattern. She confirms it, explaining that the king uses the shield as both offense and defense to keep them away, then always returns to the same spot afterward. Makoto admits he was too focused on the fight to notice, but Yuka says that's when it clicked for her, because it felt like the king was protecting something. That immediately makes Makoto think of a core, since it would be strange for such a high-level skeleton to not have one, though he wonders where it could even hide something like that in this room. Then he senses a menacing dark aura coming from behind the throne, and they both blurt it out at the same time. Yuka realizes it must be because it's round, and that's when it hits them that there is an orb embedded inside the throne itself. For a boss, she finds it surprisingly cheap, but Makoto keeps staring at the Skeleton King and tells her that if they're wrong, they're completely screwed, so she needs to be sure. Yuka doesn't hesitate and starts chanting her spell, activating another bind formation that wraps the king in restraints and locks it in place once again. As she tells Makoto this is their last chance and not to mess it up, he pushes forward with everything he has left, determined to see it through. He moves around behind the creature, leaps upward, and instead of striking the king, slams his fully ignited punch straight into the throne. The next moment, the throne explodes into scrap, and at the same time, the Skeleton King's body cracks apart and begins to dissipate. As the dust settles, Yuka just stands there, blinking, wondering if they actually beat it or if the dungeon is playing a prank. On the other side, Makoto stands completely drained and barely holding himself together. She walks over to him, and he mutters that he hopes this is the last smoke he ever has to deal with from here on out. She smacks him on the head, reminding him that he's already injured, then helps him up and tells him not to say final-sounding words when they're still alive. Then she starts roasting him, saying he's already an old geezer anyway, so if he died now, he'd probably be content, but for her, dying this young would just be trauma. Makoto calls her a good girl, which earns him an insult for not noticing something that obvious sooner, and he admits it with a dumb smile. She asks why he's grinning like an idiot while she's literally holding him up, and Makoto casually says he's pretty damn lucky. Before she can demand an explanation, the dungeon decides it's done hosting guests and starts shaking like it's having a meltdown. Yuka clicks her tongue, complaining that trouble keeps stacking. They quickly realize the dungeon is collapsing, and Makoto says it must be because they defeated the boss. Terrified, they cling to each other as Yuka asks what's going to happen to them, and Makoto just as afraid. Naturally, the dungeon refuses to let anyone have an emotional confession. The ground drops out from under them, and the two fall together as the entire dungeon crumbles around them. Meanwhile, on the other side in the Vali's kingdom, the land is infamous as an ancient battlefield from the Age of the Gods. Humans once fought the undead king here, and even now, the region is riddled with dungeons, including ones ruled by his former subordinates like the Skeleton King. Lord Chris is deeply troubled, largely due to the nature of the land, since mid-tier undead frequently appear here and hinder the proper training of knights. Inside a moving carriage, Chris comments that if they had more fighting strength, they could significantly reduce casualties. She wonders aloud if it would be possible to obtain a chosen one and asks Laura for her thoughts. Laura responds that it would be difficult, mentioning she heard that 20 people were summoned recently, so it wouldn't be strange for such discussions to start, though chosen ones could easily disrupt the military balance. Even if the kingdom planned to grant one, it wouldn't happen immediately. Chris adds that even the strongest knight directly under the king is only level 50, so such power wouldn't be handed over lightly. Laura explains that she heard chosen ones can reach level 100, and on top of that, children born to them inherit their talent. She adds bitterly that her sister Charlotte is already throwing herself at one of them, if it meant reaching the throne, as the carriage quietly continues through the forest. Elsewhere, deep within another part of the forest, Makoto feels a strange sensation as his entire body regenerates, leaving him aching all over with an unbearable dryness in his throat. He cries out for water and feels himself submerged, momentarily panicking when he notices something like a tail and wonders if he's turned into a monster. He tries to drink but can't manage it, and then he hears someone calling his name. When he opens his eyes, Yuka is right in front of him, relieved and smiling because he finally woke up. Makoto asks where they are, but even Yuka doesn't know which forest this is. He suddenly realizes they left their belongings behind at the temple and asks what happened, and Yuka explains that she remembers everything, saying that after the dungeon collapsed, everything went dark. She grabs his hand and helps him get up, explaining that when she regained consciousness, they were already in the forest. Seeing his arm completely healed, she guesses his level must have gone up. Makoto mentions he didn't hear any system notification, and Yuka excitedly offers to check for him. He comments that since the Skeleton King was so tough, she must be around level 80 now, which makes her freeze and stare at him. He tells her not to say there's a massive level gap between them after surviving death together, adding that she could at least let her guard down a little. She quickly brushes it off, saying she was just surprised. When he asks her level directly, she calmly says it's 100, shocking him even more when she adds that all her stats are at 255. Makoto mutters that it's like a game system since a lot of games cap stats at that number, and she agrees, saying that must be how it works. After that, she admits he's not a bad guy and asks what they should do next. Makoto suggests heading toward a town by following the river, and while Yuka worries it could be dangerous, he explains that mountains are risky, but forests at least offer landmarks. She agrees it's a good point, and when she notices fish in the water, he adds they can find food along the way. Makoto points out that they don't even have tools, but with stats at 255, she could probably catch fish bare-handed unless the system requires specific skills. Makoto laughs and says he doubts it's that game-like, and Yuka quietly hopes he's right. However, they keep walking but find no trace of people anywhere, and Makoto says it cannot be helped and that they should rest for the day, while Yuka sighs at the idea of camping again. Just then, Makoto pauses and asks if she heard a voice, but Yuka says she felt nothing, and as Makoto listens more carefully, he realizes it is not a voice but something echoing inside his head. He explains he is not sure about the details, but it feels like some kind of conflict nearby, and Yuka also gets a bad feeling. So Makoto decides they have no other leads anyway and suggests checking it out, telling her they will hide and observe first and only help if the people involved seem decent enough to guide them to a town. As they move forward, Makoto notices that even light jogging feels insanely fast, watching Yuka move without breaking a sweat, and he realizes the world feels different now, his senses sharper, while the strange echo in his head grows quieter and he wonders if they will make it in time. On the other side, Lord Chris's carriage is stopped and being looted, with Laura fighting alongside a knight while a few more attackers close in. Makoto and Yuka watch from the bushes, and to them it looks like bandits attacking a carriage, making Yuka wonder if they should help, while Makoto asks her to check their stats. She reports that the bandit-looking men are killers around level 5, while the two defending the carriage are level 15 and 12, and Makoto is surprised that the numbers are still overwhelming, until Yuka calls him an idiot and explains that the level gap is the only reason they are holding on. When Yuka asks how they are supposed to help, Makoto suggests blasting them with magic in one shot, which makes her snap that he is trying to turn her into a murderer, telling him to restrain them himself instead. Before moving out, he borrows a towel from her. Meanwhile, the bandits overpower Laura and tie her to the carriage, leaving her unable to move, as the bandit boss steps forward with a greedy grin to take revenge for his fallen buddies. He squeezes her lemons crudely and talks about having fun, tearing her clothes, leaving her big plots on display. Laura, cheeks burning red, screams for them to just finish her instead of jizzing her up. He mocks her, saying female knights always say the same thing, and is about to go further when a voice stops him, making the other bandits tense up and shout about someone hiding. One of them points uphill, where a dark figure appears, and Makoto looks down at them, declaring that people who go that far to satisfy their greed are what the world calls villains. The bandits yell at the hero-looking, face-covered guy, demanding to know who he is, and he answers with an overly dramatic introduction, while Yuka watches from afar, staring at the Chunobu idiot and sighing. Fully immersed in his heroic act, Makoto jumps down as the bandit boss orders the others to get him, and they rush in shouting to kill him, only for Makoto to move with surprising skill. He weaves through them, pulling one fatso bandit in, driving a knee into his gut, and slamming the slow-moving man to the ground like a sack of potatoes, leaving Laura staring in shock. One by one, Makoto handles the rest in the same way, dropping them hard, while Yuka watches in surprise at how easily he takes them down. Makoto keeps dealing with the bandits as they appear one after another, already expecting this to happen, and one of them rushes him in rage, yelling about how dare he hurt his friend, only for Makoto to shut him up with a brutal kick that makes him spit blood the next second. The others hesitate in shock but still come at him, and Makoto handles them without slowing down, muttering his favorite move, Ignite, as flames gather around his fist. Just as he prepares to strike, he notices fear spreading across the bandits, faces and hears them shouting at him to stay away, but he does not stop, smashing one of them to the ground in a burst of fire while the rest still try to swarm him. Seeing that they keep charging despite everything, he says in disbelief that they should have run already, then drops another one, and when a fatso bandit rushes him, Makoto roasts him down as the sack of potatoes, sighing that this should be the last one. Just then, a voice tells him not to move, and Makoto turns to see the bandit boss holding the big plot girl hostage, saying he does not care what happens to her. Makoto briefly wonders how someone like that managed to catch her, given her level, but before he can react, something unexpected happens as the boss is suddenly yanked forward and slammed into the ground with a heavy thud, bones cracking loudly. Laura stands over him, kicking him again as if trying to grind him into the dirt, making Makoto realize there is no way a man like that ever truly overpowered her. He steps in, delivers the final blow, and leaves the boss dead, then exhales and says it is finally over. Makoto checks on the girl, surprised by how composed she seems after everything, thinking that murdering this many people would shake anyone, while Laura flusters and tries to cover her bouncy castles with her arms, thanking him with a red face. Yuka suddenly snaps at Makoto, demanding how many people he finished, and he shrugs it off as self-defense, though she can clearly tell he enjoyed the fight, especially when he tells her she should try it sometime. She calls him a murderer, but before the argument goes further, she notices a bandit clinging to her leg and staring up her skirt, panicking as she yells that one is still alive and tells him to let go. When he begs for help while still staring, she snaps at him to stop looking at her panties, kicks him away, and freezes in horror as his neck snaps from the impact, realizing she finished him by accident. Makoto shows up laughing, welcoming her to the world of murderers, while she panics and insists it was not on purpose. Their attention shifts back to Laura, and Makoto apologizes for interrupting, introducing himself and Yuka, then offers his torn coat to cover her, saying it is better than nothing, which only makes her red as she thanks him. She introduces herself as Laura, a knight of Count Elway, and thanks them for saving her, while Makoto apologizes for failing to save her fellow knight, only for Laura to look at the body calmly and say that a knight's duty is to protect their lord, and he would have been satisfied. Makoto briefly wonders if the fallen knight was someone important to her, but she does not deny it, and at that moment, the carriage door opens as a little girl steps out, saying she watched everything from inside and that they did well. She She introduces herself as Count Chris Elway, leaving Makoto and Yuka staring at her in surprise as she asks if something is wrong, and Makoto quickly shakes his head, saying nothing at all. However, Laura warns that there could be another attack, so they need to hurry and get through the forest. And inside the carriage, Chris offers Makoto her chain and ring as a token of gratitude for saving her. Laura looks shocked by this, while Makoto immediately refuses, but Yuka snaps at him to take it since they do not even have a single coin. Makoto brushes it off, saying he does not accept things from kids, which leaves Chris stunned at how boldly he rejects her, but he explains that it looks important, and he does not want to take something like that. When Chris admits it is a memento of her mother, Makoto stops her outright, saying rewards and punishments may rule this world, but memories are not something to sell, even as he bitterly thinks that adults often have no choice but to sell them. Chris still does not understand and says someone with his power should be earning a fortune. So why is he broke? Makoto casually answers that he woke up in a dungeon. Chris then calls them guests, explaining that those summoned to Perioris are referred to that way, and adds that while people are usually summoned to fight monsters, she has never heard of anyone being summoned directly into a dungeon. She says the church will pay him a reward, and Makoto wonders if that is possible even without proof, which surprises her, prompting Laura to explain that the number of monsters defeated is automatically recorded. Since they only fought undead, Laura says it is still fine because undead count as monsters, and Yuka finds that explanation oddly convenient, realizing why something about the dungeon felt off, since they were constantly murdering. Makoto notes that Yuka was summoned a month before him and still did not know this, and although something still feels strange to him, he relaxes at least knowing they do not have to camp outside anymore. Chris asks where the two of them are headed, and Makoto says they plan to go to a town for now, while Yuka adds that she wants to return to the royal capital, and Laura mentions she is heading back to Rockwell. They ask Makoto to decide, and when Laura explains it takes 2 days to reach the capital, but only until evening to reach Rockwell, Makoto chooses Rockwell. Yuka protests, saying she wants to meet her classmates, but Makoto reminds her that the reunion is still 10 days away, and they can go after resting, which she reluctantly accepts. And with that decided, they head to Rockwell together as Chris clearly counts on Makoto from here on. The next morning, the carriage is filled with the sound of Uncle Makoto snoring, and Yuka teases him about how well he sleeps, while he replies that salarymen are trained to sleep anywhere. Chris asks about his plans once they reach town, and he says he will visit the church first, then eat and sleep, telling her not to look so gloomy since they will be staying in Rockwell for a while anyway. Yuka asks if he really does not plan to go to the capital, suggesting that if he cooperates, they might find a way back to their world. But Makoto says he has no real reason to return and does not need to cooperate, silently adding that he cannot bring himself to trust the king or that kooky guy. When they finally arrive in Rockwell, Makoto is impressed by the sturdy walls, and Chris explains that it is dangerous outside the town, so even frontier villages at least have fences. Makoto thinks a quiet life in a village like this does not sound bad, while Yuka comments that the town clearly looks more advanced than the Middle Ages, which Makoto half agrees with, noting the presence of windows, even if it does not feel extremely advanced. As they part ways, Chris looks a little sad while waving goodbye, and Laura steps forward to offer Makoto a sword. He says he does not need it if it is a reward, but Yuka forces him to take it anyway, and Makoto accepts on the condition that Laura can take it back whenever she wants, earning her sincere thanks. As they walk away, Makoto wonders if the dagger really means anything, only for Yuka to casually translate that Laura is completely in love with him, sending him into shocked panic. She doubles down, saying it makes sense since he saved her from bandits, then laughs when she notices him blushing like a geezer and teases him about his cute side, while he tells her to shut up and says they should head to the church and find an inn since it is already night. Later, they arrive at the church, and as they step inside, Makoto notices a request board mounted on a corner wall, which honestly does not feel very church-like at all. Seeing him stare at it, Yuka mutters that his Chunibyo side is acting up again, but Makoto, already impatient, asks where they are supposed to collect the reward money. Yuka recalls that the priest handles everything, and right then, A receptionist who looks like Tom with his face half-hidden calls Makoto by name and guides them inside. They enter a quiet, dim room where an angelic-looking woman with long hair greets them and calmly calls Makoto the user of the 7 devils, instantly making Yuka snap at him with suspicion, while Makoto panics at her reaction. The priest explains that the 7 evil is just a collective term for spirits that govern the mind, and being their user does not automatically make someone evil. Yet Makoto feels hurt that, after everything they survived together, even crossing the line of death, Yuka still doubts him. Yuka argues that trusting someone completely is scary, because what if he attacks the moment she lowers her guard, which makes Makoto shout back that she should not have asked for his help in the first place. She fires back that hearing this from someone tied to the 7 evils only makes it worse, while Makoto counters that if she knows about them, then she should trust his humanity instead. Emotionally, Yuka finally looks him in the eyes and asks if it is really okay for her to trust him, only to snap again when she notices his muttering eyes, leaving Makoto blushing. Ignoring her nonsense, he tells the priest that the title sounds dangerous, and she calmly replies that, from what she has seen of his actions, he should be just fine. Yuka then subtly signals Makoto about the money, and although he wants to tell her to ask herself if she is that curious, he swallows it and politely asks the priest about their reward. The priest takes his hand, performs a brief ritual, and tells him his account has been created and the reward deposited. Curious, Makoto asks how to check it, and she tells him to touch his hand and say display, which he does, while Yuka shyly follows along. His balance shows 100,000 A, with A being the local unit, and Makoto roughly estimates it as about 10 million yen back in his world. When he asks about bonus points, the priest explains they can be used to expand skill functions, mostly passive ones like resistance or stat boosts, while active skills are rare, with appraisal being one of the few. She clarifies that skills are expanded, not newly acquired, as they are extensions of one's job or human potential. Makoto checks further, agrees to expand his skills, spends 70 bonus points, and decides to save the remaining 30. Yuka suddenly snaps at him, shocked that he got 100,000 while she only received half, and Makoto casually replies that the rest went toward the Lich King. She argues back that she helped just as much, especially since her insight was what allowed them to defeat the sorcerer, and Makoto realizes she is right. Wanting things to be fair, he asks the priest to split the reward evenly, which immediately satisfies greedy Yuka. After asking about an inn and being told to confirm at the reception, they thank the priest, who says it is simply her duty, and leave. They soon arrive at an inn that looks straight out of a western, surprising Makoto when he realizes Yuka knows what that is too. Inside, they ask for rooms, and a hot girl with her jiggling castles appears from behind the counter, cheerfully welcoming them to the Golden Sheep Inn. Makoto cannot help thinking she is quite hot, and when he mentions they were sent by the church, her interest clearly sharpens, especially toward his young appearance. He stiffens, worried she might suspect him of lacking money, but she explains that payments can be transferred directly from church accounts. Finding that convenient, Makoto nods while Yuka looks impressed. The woman introduces herself as Sherry, and Makoto casually calls her by name, which she takes as a sign of interest, making him flustered as he insists he is not a kid. When Sherry asks if they want to share a room, Yuka instantly snaps that this old geezer is not her boyfriend and demands separate rooms. Makoto asks about laundry as well since they need clean clothes, and Sherry presses close, saying it is free, making him blush as he insists on paying. She teases that he is rude, not realizing he is still a virgin. Later, Makoto collapses onto the bed, relieved to finally be at an inn, only to jump back up when Sherry knocks to deliver clothes, realizing he should shower before dirtying the bed. In her room, Yuka checks her clothes and finds a one-piece outfit with no undergarments, which she can handle, until she notices the thong included and flushes hard, convinced Sherry did this on purpose. Tossing it aside, she decides to shower first and enjoys the warmth, thinking about how she once believed she would die after being separated from her classmates, and how Makoto saved her. As usual, she notices her lemon getting bigger again and sighs in embarrassment. Then her thoughts drift to her mother and her resolve to return home, land a first-class job, and make her proud, before reluctantly putting the thong back on. Back in the common area, the big plot Sherry fusses over Makoto's oversized clothes, insisting they fit perfectly, while he asks about dinner and requests a drink. She warns him against alcohol, calling him too young, but he settles for lemon water, still insisting he's not a kid, which she says is better for his stomach. Yuka joins them after her shower, her one piece barely containing her dancing plots inside, and cheerfully comments that the bath was far better than the underground lake. She sits beside Makoto and asks for a drink too, laughing when Sherry hands her lemon water, which she finds refreshing. Makoto then asks Sherry about the Varus Knights, and she mentions they are nearby because a dungeon disappeared, and they are preparing to leave. Yuka reacts to the idea of a disappearing dungeon, while Makoto casually admits it is their fault, asking if that worries her. Sherry shrugs, explaining that this land is an old battlefield full of dungeons, and although the Lord does his best, some things slip through the cracks. Makoto concludes that if people are coexisting fine, there is nothing to worry about. Just then, the door creaks open behind them, and Sherry quickly apologizes, saying they are not ready yet, while a group of knights enters and says it is fine. Makoto turns and recognizes Takeshi, Kuki, and Hashino, and as Kuki insists on paying so they can rest, Makoto realizes these must be Yuka's classmates, even though she still has not noticed them yet. With familiar faces reappearing and the dungeon's shadow still looming, the choice ahead grows heavier by the second. Will Yuka return home, or has this world already claimed them both? Comment mysterious dungeon if you want to find out in part 2.